What is up, everybody? Welcome to my annual midnight recording of reacting to the first round of the NFL draft. Thank you to everybody who tuned in for a phenomenal first round live stream. I know you guys have a lot of options out there to tune into other people, so it's always an honor and flattering that you guys spend the night with me, and I hope to see But I hope to see you guys tomorrow night and Saturday during the day as well for my live reactions and analysis to every single pick from the 2026 NFL Draft. While we're at it, please do hit that like button if you enjoy today's video. And I want to thank Prize Picks as well for sponsoring today's show. We'll hear more from them in a little bit. But let's get started. So the Raiders take Fernando Mendoza. Surprise, surprise, with the number one pick. We've spent a lot of time talking about it, and then at the same time, not a lot of time talking about it because this has been so locked in. I've kind of felt the need as we've gotten closer and closer to this actually being the pick to maybe push back on the idea of this being this just slam dunk, yes, obvious, like perfect pick for the Raiders. Like they kind of did what they had to do. They felt like they didn't have a choice. They had to get a quarterback in this draft, and he was the number one quarterback. And I don't disagree with that, but I will at least stand by it and say I think in an average draft, Mendoza is at best QB2. A lot of drafts, he's QB3. I genuinely believe he is somewhere close to like how I viewed Bo Nix and maybe Mac Jones coming out. And I don't think it's just this guarantee that Mendoza goes to a bad Raiders team and lights the world on fire and is the same guy he was in college in a system that honestly painted a very easy picture for him as a quarterback. Good protection, great receivers, a system that really didn't ask him to attack the middle of the field all that much. I've got questions that Mendoza is someone that should have gone with the number one overall pick. Now, I'm not saying the Raiders shouldn't have done this, and maybe they didn't even have offers to move down, and get 3 first-round picks for him. But for me, this is about a B- graded pick. And I do try to grade on a pretty, quote-unquote, harsh curve. Like, a lot of people are going to see the B- and remember high school math and be like, if I got a B- in math class, I would go home and get spanked by my mom. I'm trying to grade relatively harshly so that when I really do love a pick, it's an A. It's an A+. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with what the Raiders did, but that also doesn't mean that they knocked this pick out of the park in terms of getting the best player for where they were picking, in my opinion. So I'm excited to watch Mendoza at this point and see how this goes. I'm excited to see how day 2 of the draft goes because I think in terms of getting him perimeter playmaking talent and continuing to make sure that that offensive line is where it needs to be, I do think Mendoza is a guy that needs the right protection, that needs the right infrastructure around him. And if they can continue to build that quickly for him, this can absolutely work out and he can be a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying he's a guaranteed bust or that they screwed this up, but I do have some questions in a world where I feel like we've reached a point where it's like, yep, of course they took Mendoza number 1. He's going to be a top 10 QB in the league, and that's that. Like, I don't think it's that simple. So B- for me on Mendoza at number 1. Then we have my least favorite pick of the entire first round, David Bailey to the New York Jets. For me, this is just too early for how I viewed David Bailey, for who I think he is as a player, for what I project him to be at the next level. I think he brings a good floor as a pass rusher with the speed and a nice inside spin move that I wish he was better at knowing when to use inside counters. You talk about a pass rusher wanting a pass rush plan and understanding how to set moves up as a game goes on. Bailey has an inside spin move, but I don't watch his games. I did 5 full games on David Bailey. He doesn't seem to be a guy that has an advanced understanding of how to set tackles up and get really nuanced as a pass rusher. He really is out there trying to out-athlete his competition. And I'll be honest, the tackles he faced were not good. He has an incredible first step. He's got long speed, and he can threaten these tackles that just don't have NFL range in their kick slides. They were automatic wins for David Bailey at times, but that's not going to happen at the NFL level. NFL tackles can get that depth, cut off those speed rushes up the arc. And that's where you watch David Bailey, even at times when he faced like the Utah tackles or Maxi Hanachor, his plan B just wasn't really there. He has okay power, and again, he has a spin move that works when he uses it, but I don't know that he fully understands how to set up inside counters. He also is not a particularly bendy speed rusher. He can have that get off and that speed and get up the field, but he doesn't have the great ability to turn and corner and convert on that great speed and get off against NFL caliber tackles. So again, I think the speed, I think solid power and an inside spin move that he will break out from time to time will get him some pass rush wins. He's going to be able to get after the quarterback. I still think he's a first round caliber prospect, but I don't like his run defense. He has almost no anchor. He's very light in his lower half. And I just think there were so many better players that the Jets could have taken. I think Arvell Reese would have been a better pick for them. I think his upside, his power profile is just so much higher than David Bailey, in my opinion. And we'll just have to see how that plays out. You know, I think David Bailey can be a nice kind of number 2 pass rushing oriented edge player, worthy of maybe the 15th pick in the draft. Something like a Bruce Irvin was, or Leonard Floyd as a hyper athlete coming out of Georgia. I don't think he's worth the number 2 pick in the draft. So for me, this is a D- graded pick. I do not like this decision for the Jets. I'm confident enough in that to be critical of this pick, to be critical of Aaron Glenn, who almost certainly was pounding the table for this as his guy, a defensive head coach, his guy in this draft. He had anybody he wanted in this draft. Fernando Mendoza went number 1. The Jets could have had anybody, and David Bailey was their guy. I disagree with that assessment. This is a D- graded pick, and we're just going to have to see how that plays out. I'm prepared to be wrong. If he's a beast, I'll admit I was wrong. That's how it goes with this kind of stuff. But I'm going to call it like I see it, and I'm not a fan of this pick for the Jets. Before we go any further, I want to thank the sponsor for today's show, Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. On Prize Picks, they have an easy-to-use app where you have a chance and win some money, stringing together lineups where you'll pick any number of player stats, picking more or less on all the sports, all the stats. So whether it's football, picking touchdowns and passing yards, baseball, strikeouts, hockey, you get the point. They have so many options on Prize Picks. They even have team picks now where you can pick the winner, the spread, and totals on any major game. And that's available in most states, including Texas, California, and Florida. And one thing Prize Picks has that I'm excited about is you can follow my handle at TFG_football and follow along with all of my picks throughout the summer. I'll be putting together baseball lineups. I have really reestablished my love of the game of baseball, something that goes way back to when I was just a puppy. But having Prize Picks lineups to give you a little rooting interest and a chance to win some extra money is something I have really enjoyed as the baseball season has already begun. And you know we're going to be diving deep into the stats and trying to pick some winners when football season rolls around. So when you sign up, Prize Picks will give you $50 in bonus lineups. It's going to be code HMA when you do sign up, or click that link in the description below. So thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show, and let's get back to it. Okay, the Cardinals at number 3. Unfortunately, this is also one of my least favorite picks of the night. I was talking about this in the middle of the stream where it really feels like teams aren't screwing up these picks as much as we used to see, with the exception maybe of the teams that bad teams stay bad because owners meddle. There was a rumor that the owners got in there and said, we need Jeremiah Love to sell seats. So that's that. We're taking a running back. And it just doesn't make sense for the Cardinals. They have 3 running backs on the roster. They just signed Tyler Algier. They brought James Conner back. Trey Benson hopefully can stay healthy. But I was already looking at that Cardinals running back room like, yeah, that's more than good enough. This team has an atrocious offensive line. They still have work to do on the defense. There are so many other directions you could have gone other than a running back. And look, this is not about Jeremiah Love. He's the best overall football player in this draft at the least valuable position in the league that also happened to be an area of strength for your team. Here's the best way to put this. I'm terrified that this is going to be an Ashton Ginty situation where the Raiders took him 6th. They had a horrible offensive line, They were constantly losing games, and nobody talked about Ashton Ginty. And he had one good game against the Texans. Other than that, he was running into brick walls. They were coming from behind, and we're sitting there like, man, they really should have taken Armin Membu, or they should have added to this defense. And it's just, I'm so confident that this could play out that way that I don't think it's good process. You still got an incredible football player in Jeremiah Love, and hopefully in time with Mike LaFleur, they can build a proper infrastructure around him. But man, I just hope it isn't 2 years of him getting 600 meaningless touches and putting unnecessary wear on his body. And you're just sitting there like, man, why did we take a running back that high when we have so many other key positions that need work? So I don't like this either. This is a C- move for me. Again, nothing to do with the football player. And if you're a Cardinals fan and you're like, I don't care, Jeremiah Love is effing awesome, I can't wait to watch him, that's cool, but is it going to help you get to where you need to be and start winning football games? I have some serious questions. All right, Carnell Tate at number 4 to the Tennessee Titans. Tate's kind of a interesting player to talk about, I think, because I feel like most people are about where I am on Carnell Tate, and I'm going to share my big board now as I talk here just to kind of put some of this in context. Like, I feel like a lot of people are kind of similar to me, where Carnell Tate as a talent in this draft class was probably somewhere between 10 and 15. Like, he's an extremely high floor, likely like really good number 2 wide receiver. I really like my T. Higgins comparison with him, where, okay, he's not quite as tall as T, but really smooth mover, like a true X wide receiver, catches everything. Like, his 0 drops and 85% contested catch win rate in his final year, I would go as far as saying he has generational ball skills. People hate when you say the word generational. I'm not saying he is a generational wide receiver talent. I'm saying that trait that he has, the ball skills, the ability to just catch everything, whether he's covered or not, it's really, really special. And it raises his floor. He's a pretty good route runner for a bigger wide receiver. But for an X wide receiver, he's not that big. He doesn't really give you anything after the catch. He's a good separator, not a great separator, and he was the number 2 wide receiver on his own team. Not something I hold against him because he had Jeremiah Love there, but I think that skill set translates to like what he's probably going to be at the next level, where he's I think, like T. Higgins, the type of wide receiver that if he's your number 1, you're okay with it, but you're always going to probably be in a situation where you're willing to say we could do better with our number 1 wide receiver. And I think that's who Carnell Tate is. Yet I don't really have an issue with the Titans taking him at number 4. I don't. I think if you just wanted to make sure you hit where all these other wide receivers kind of have a yeah but about them. Jordan Tyson, can he stay healthy? Mekhi Lemon, as much as I love him and he is my number 1 wide receiver, he's more of a slot guy, and they just gave $20 million to Wan'Dale Robinson. I love Omar Cooper Jr. a lot. Even if I was picking there, I know I'd be crazy to spend the number 4 pick on Omar Cooper Jr. You're not crazy to spend the number 4 pick on Carnell Tate. I don't think anybody saw this and was like, what? It was a little bit of a surprise, but no one was like, oh my God, Carnell Tate at 4? What a horrible pick. Like, he just kind of has that safe outside wide receiver skill set when you know that this team is trying to build around Cam Ward, that I just really understand how they got to this conclusion on Carnell Tate. I think he's going to be good here, and it's not some incredible steal of a value or anything like that, but this is a B-graded pick for me. It's like the definition of a B-graded pick, where I think it'll work out. It's maybe a tick low, like a tick below excellent value, quote unquote, but I'm totally fine with it. So again, a B is a good, solid pick. Then we have the Giants, who I think surprised everybody, myself included, when they took Arvell Reese. And my take on this proved to be true. What I was saying during the live stream, I said that I wouldn't be surprised if we get a press conference and they come out and say Arvell Reese was the best player in this draft for us. And I honestly don't think it's crazy at all, because in a world where there's stuff with Ruben Bain, Ruben Main's kind of this weird conversation this year where there's a driving situation and we don't have all the information. It's been this weird deal that's been kind of covered up and all the teams know all the info. We don't really know all the info. So basically, if you're in a world where Ruben Bain can't be the best player in this draft class, I think Arvell Reese is. You can see on the board there, he's the number 2 player for me. I think the Jets should have taken him at number 2 instead of David Bailey. A MetLife, that's going to be a fun MetLife, call it rivalry, draft rivalry. We see this all the time where 2 players in the same draft get picked, sometimes division rivals, sometimes same stadium. 2 positions in the same draft get compared to each other all the time. So that will be fun to follow. But I think for the Giants, you just lost number one, I think a lot of people are confused why they would take an edge in Arvell Reese, who they have Abdul Carter from last year. They have Brian Burns. They have Kayvon Thibodeau. Why would you take a 4th edge? And for me, the easy thing to say there is he was the number 1 player in the draft, in the Giants' opinion. And I said, I bet in their post-draft press conference, that's what they're going to say. And that's exactly what happened. So if you're picking 5th and you think the best player in the draft is there, you might want to just take him no matter what. And I actually think when you look out a year, this makes a ton of sense for the Giants. And this really grows on me to the point that this is actually an A-graded draft pick for me. You obviously have Abdul Carter, who was even underrated as a rookie. He's going to be an alpha edge rusher for you. But when you look at the rest of that D-line, look, Brian Burns, I have said this, and I think the Giants doing this confirms what I saw on tape. Brian Burns had one of the flukiest double-digit sack seasons ever. I did not think he was an all-pro talent last year. I shared my cut-up on Twitter. I'll try to find that link and put it in the description below if you're interested. He ended up with like 12 and a half sacks where he actually didn't beat a guy on any of them. And yeah, he's got speed. He can track down the QB. That's great. I don't think there's a player in the NFL, other than maybe Christian McCaffrey, due for a larger regression season than Brian Burns. And Kayvon Thibodeau, there's been a lot of talks about him getting traded anyway. And you might be able to get we might see a Kayvon Thibodeau trade tomorrow for a 4th round pick or something. But when I look out a year, with no Dexter Lawrence there now, we've got Abdul Carter, but I don't love the rest of that D-line now that Dexter Lawrence is gone. And if you think Arvell Reese can be Micah Parsons, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, and I thought Abdul Carter could be something like Micah Parsons. If you're looking at this and saying, all right, 2 years from now, we will have 2 Micah Parsons, and good luck blocking that, that's a pretty easy sell to any front office. And you might be able to flip these other edge rushers for some picks. And in the meantime, you have Arvell Reese can rush as a linebacker. He can play some linebacker. That's not even a full position change for him. We saw that with Micah Parsons. He played off-ball linebacker year 1 and then made that change. But you have now Abdul Carter, who literally did this at Penn State, went from linebacker to edge. You can teach Arvell Reese some of the ropes there with that transition. You have Brian Burns, who has turned it, I criticized him, but he is really well regarded for his leadership, his mentorship. He's a great mentor for Arvell Reese as he learns edge. So I like this pick. It's a roundabout way of talking about it when it was a pick that nobody saw coming, but this is an A-graded pick for me, and I think it's gonna age really well, and is the classic example of draft best player available. And more often than not, that ages well. So then we have the Chiefs, who moved up. They gave up, I think, a 3rd and a 5th round pick to come up from 9 to 6 and take Mansour Delane. And this was a victory lap moment for me because I've had at it with Chiefs fans for months about the idea that they would take a corner in the top 10. Because Chiefs fans are like, we don't need to draft a corner early. We develop these guys all the time. And Chiefs fans very conveniently forget that they built their secondary around the 1st round corner in Trent McDuffie. Like, it's really nice to have that cornerstone player that can do everything for you. And then, yeah, you fill in guys that have some flaws that fill in as 2s and 3s. And right now, yeah, you might be able to develop some guys, but they got major questions. It feels a lot better to just drop in that number 1 corner in one of the best players in the draft. Mansour Delane was number 6 on my big board. Feels a lot better to be able to just drop that in there and then yeah, you do have some remaining questions in the secondary, but you feel a lot more comfortable that some of those pieces will hit and you'll be pretty good in the secondary there. So, did they have to trade up? Maybe. I mean, it sounds like the Browns were going to get out of this pick no matter what. So you probably weren't trading up to stop. I mean, maybe New Orleans wanted him, but you might have been trading up to stop another team from coming up for Mansour Delane. But it's not like they gave up that much. A third and a fifth to go from 9 to 6 is not that bad. And I think the player's really good. So this is a B graded pick for me for Mansour Delane to the Chiefs. It's not, especially when you factor in the trade up, it's not some unbelievable A graded pick, but I like it for the Chiefs. I really do. Again, a B is a good pick. Sonny Styles goes number 7 to the Washington Commanders, and I kind of became known as the Sonny Styles hater in the draft community this year. I always push back on the top 5 hype for Sonny Styles. It's just a really tough sell for this position in the top 5. With the bust rate at this position, the reality that most linebackers just don't impact the game to the level that I think most fans would care to admit. And that applies when you actually watch Sonny Styles tape and just put the elite combine to the side for a second. You watch Sonny Styles tape and it's like, he's a really good college linebacker, but I can't say at no point, but for the most part, if you watched Ohio State, at no point are you like, oh my God, defenses are terrified of Sonny Styles. Like, oh my God, Sonny Styles is dominating and taking over this game. It's more like, wow, that was a really good rep against the run. And now it's 2nd and 11, that's just the nature of the linebacker position, on top of the fact that it's incredibly hard to learn and become what everybody thinks Sonny Styles is going to be, which is Fred Warner. So that all still applies when you take a Sonny Styles at number 7, but this is closer to the range that I'm comfortable with Sonny Styles, where the expectations aren't quite as high as a top 5 pick. The pay slot's a little bit less. And I also really like him on Washington, where their biggest issue last year, I think, was the speed and the ability to limit run after catch from their defense. If there's something Sonny Styles does at an elite level, it is run sideline to sideline and tackle. And while I do think has some stuff to develop with run diagnostics and coverage IQ and block take on consistency, there's a lot of linebacker stuff that I think gets dismissed with Sonny Styles because of the elite athletic upside, and he is the highest upside player in this draft class by my grading system. So I acknowledge the upside. But I think there's a lot more negative on his tape than people care to admit. So while that stuff gets up to speed with Dan Quinn, who's a phenomenal linebackers coach, he's going to be able to do what this team needs so badly and limit big run after catch opportunities. So this is another B graded pick. I don't think this is like knock it out of the park value or anything absurd. I would personally beg the question with wide receivers and edge rushers getting paid $45-50 million if it would have been better to take a swing at, in my opinion, better prospects, especially like a Reuben Bain, but even at wide receiver, which is a huge need for them. I do think there are other more impactful picks that the Commanders could have made, and that is why I landed a B, maybe a B+. But nothing wrong with the pick. Excited to see him in a Commanders jersey. All right, the Saints take Jordan Tyson. All of the Jordan Tyson is a top 10 pick noise that picked up in the last week came true. And it's a gamble on health, right? He's missed a lot of time over the last few years. I worry about the hamstrings, but it's hard to argue with, if you're willing to, wipe off the medical stuff. It's hard to argue with the evaluation of him as a top 8 player in the draft. I have said if you could guarantee me a full bill of health, Jordan Tyson would be the number 1 wide receiver in this draft, but you can't do that. He's missed a lot of time. This is a risk, and there's a reason Tyson was more around 20 on my own personal board there. But I do, especially with Carnell Tate gone, I do really see how he fits, right? They needed a nice perimeter wide receiver. He's got a ton of juice. He tracks the ball well. He does everything well, right? I compare him to Stephon Diggs. He's just so balanced, so smooth. I would say smoother than fast, but he's still explosive. So if he can stay healthy, I'm excited to see him cook with Tyler Shuck. is another B-graded pick for me with Jordan Tyson at number 8. Then you have the Browns, who traded down and ended up selecting Fano as the first tackle off the board. And, I understand liking really any number of these tackles as the number 1 tackle. I think it was aware by the Browns to be like, we need a left tackle. We probably don't need to take that guy at 6. Do I agree that Fano is a better tackle prospect than Maui Noah, than even Monroe Freeling or Blake Miller? I don't. Fano was my 4th offensive tackle, but it's very, very close to the point that I can't be overly critical. And I also understand how the Browns can look at their offensive line and say, we really value the flexibility where he could play left, he could play right, he could play guard, he could play center. We're going to figure out what he is in time. For now, he's going to be our left tackle. And his floor is really nice. I do think the upside of Fano, I do think the shorter arms hurt him at times. And I think if you got your choice of any tackle in this draft, I do wonder if Francis Mauigoa is going to end up being a better player. Now, Mauigoa is probably going to play guard for the Giants, so that would complicate things. But it's another, I think, B pick for me. We knew that they wanted to go tackle, and they were right, by the way, to want the tackle with their first pick, because the run on tackles was real. So I think the gameplay of the draft compensates a little bit for the fact that he wouldn't have been my choice at tackle. Wouldn't be stunned if he ends up the 3rd or 4th best tackle out of this draft, but I still think he's going to be good. And I think going with that position and maneuvering things the way they did was good. So it is another B. I'm sorry to just go B, 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 but I'm not going to force, a different grade just to be different. I'm trying to evaluate consistently here. But with number 10 here, with the Giants getting my number 1 tackle in Francis Mauigoa, and another ring the bell moment for me with the Giants. I loved Mauigoa to the Giants at 5 because they have a massive hole at guard, and I think Mauigoa is right behind Venga Iwane as an awesome guard prospect, but Mauigoa also is a really good tackle prospect. He was way more athletic than I expected to see going in to watch him. Really nice feet, and was like lockdown and pass pro for Miami at right tackle. But the reason I preferred Mauigoa to Iwane for them is the tough reality is that Andrew Thomas gets hurt every single year. And when he gets hurt, the Giants' offensive line makes you want to cry. And it makes whatever quarterback has to play behind that want to cry. And I like Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle, but he's getting up there in age, so he might not be your forever answer at tackle. So for now, Mauigoa is going to play right guard. But if and when Andrew Thomas gets hurt, you got a left tackle. If 2 years from now, it's time to move on from Jermaine Illuminor, who's a good right tackle, but not a superstar or anything like that, and he's getting older, and it's time to make Mauigoa your franchise tackle, great. But in the meantime, you have, with Harbaugh coming in, an ass-kicking offensive line up front, paving the way for Scatabo coming back. So I'm excited for what the Giants did. It's eerily familiar to probably my worst draft grades ever was related to the New York Giants in 2022 when they ended up with 2 top 10 picks. They took an edge rusher in Kayvon Thibodeau that I loved. They took a tackle that I loved in Evan Neal. Thought they won the draft. And boy, did they not win the draft. Very reminiscent of that. But outside of PTSD, I think they crushed this draft. I loved what the Giants did in the top 10. If you had to trade Dexter Lawrence to get those 2 players and just say, we're gonna really assert our dominance in the trenches, I'm game. That's how I'm building teams, man. Give me pass rush, give me offensive line all day. So I actually went with an A grade for Francis Mauigoa, by the way. And then Caleb Downs to the Dallas Cowboys. This one can be a little quicker. I mean, Caleb Downs for me was the, I think, 4th overall player in this draft. You get him at 11. That is a steal, in my opinion. That is where we will use the S-graded rank certified steal. They gave up like 2 fifth-round picks to come up and stop anybody else from coming up to get Caleb Downs. And Caleb Downs is built to play a Fangio or McDonald-style split safety defense. Him from quarters is teach tape. The way he takes away intermediate throws, it's beautiful. You can put him down in the box if you need to, but this is just such an incredibly high-floor football player and filled a need for Dallas. This one was a no-brainer, especially to barely have to give anything up to come up. So that was an S for Caleb Downs. Then we got Caleb Proctor to the Dolphins. I think a lot of people are going to say this was a reach. It was a bad pick. I think ironically last year I defended the Cowboys taking Tyler Booker out of Alabama at the 12th pick. Very different situations, but reminiscent in some ways. But yeah, Caleb Proctor, or Caden Proctor, rather. There's a Caleb Proctor that'll be drafted probably on Saturday, maybe late tomorrow night. But anyway, Caden Proctor gets a lot of hate because Alabama, like unfair to Proctor, Alabama asked him to play at like 375 pounds. And the biggest problem with Proctor is he had a hard time picking up his feet and handling quick-hitting pass rush moves. And he took some losses because of it and didn't live up to his hype. And anytime a guy is like a way too early mock draft top 5 guy and doesn't live up to it, they get a good amount of hate, right? And look, I get it. Like there were some ugly moments on tape, but I think he gets confused for not being a good athlete because he clearly is. The north and south explosiveness is there. They threw him balls on screens for a reason. He gets off the ball. I like the run blocking. The question is, can he have the foot speed to play tackle at the next level? And what's interesting to me about Proctor is he has lost weight. He got down to 350 at the combine, and I think teams will continue to ask him to drop weight, get down to like 340 pounds. And that's like 40 pounds off. So if he can pick up his feet and move much better, we could really be in business. And I loved Mike Renner's take on this. He picked him as my guy, that at a reduced weight, he could be the best tackle in this draft. I don't think it's crazy to suggest that his upside with a good loss of weight could be that, and that this could be a really good pick for Miami. And I also like it because right now they kind of have their tackles in Miami, but we know Austin Jackson's not going to be that guy forever. And even at left tackle with Paul, showed some good stuff in McDaniel's offense that really shelters these guys by getting the ball out quick and using play action. Paul's not a guarantee at left tackle. So there's one, if not both of those tackle spots could reveal themselves as needs within a year. And Proctor could then play tackle, but he's going to upgrade that guard spot. And if he just sticks at guard, I love Caden Proctor as a guard because that immediately revokes his only issue, which is foot speed. So, and I think for a guy that's almost 6'7", he keeps his pads down. So I actually really like this as a fit. I could absolutely see him turning into a really nice player. And you know, it's going to be a B graded pick for me, just because he is the 25th player on my board. I want to keep the grading consistent. But I will acknowledge, like, I like the fit, and I think a lot of people are going to be critical of this pick. That I get it. I think it could work. And I also love the idea of going trench play and building through the trenches with your new regime coming in. All right. The Rams at 13 take Ty Simpson, and this, talk about a pick that people are going to hate. And I've defended the crap out of Ty Simpson. I really have. Not maybe at 13. It's certainly a little bit early. But when the Rams gave up pick 29, they knew that they weren't going to be able to get their quarterback late, right? So, like, you kind of have to do it here. And I do think there were teams in this draft. Maybe it was the Jets. Maybe it was the Cardinals. Maybe the Steelers were playing with us and trying to make it the best kept secret in the draft world that they actually wanted Ty Simpson. But I do think he was probably going to go in the first round. Look, man, I think Ty Simpson is the most misunderstood prospect in this draft. I think he has a way better ceiling than people realize. A lot of times he gets compared to Bo Nix and Brock Purdy and, guys that are typically affiliated with lower upside quarterbacks. And That's not what I see when I watch Ty Simpson. I see a guy that has a really good arm, that pushes the ball downfield, that extends plays, that has really good pocket presence. It's just, he's inconsistent. He plays like a quarterback that only started 13 games. The processing's all over the place. He makes some bad mistakes, and some of the accuracy needs to get reined in. But how many freaking quarterbacks have we said, oh, I think he'd be really good if he just went to the Rams under Sean McVay, right? Like, that has been said about every quarterback ever for the last 4 years. We've been trying to find the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford, and now Ty Simpson, who to me I said, if he can sit for 2 years in a good system and then get the Jordan Love treatment that like so many quarterbacks should get, like J.J. McCarthy should have gotten the Jordan Love treatment. I think Ty Simpson can be something like Jordan Love, something like Sam Darnold. My pro comp on Ty Simpson is the full spectrum of Sam Darnold, where you can get the good outcome, or if you force him to play right away, it's going to be a disaster. And this is just the perfect situation. And that goes without saying. So I'm actually going to give this a B. I think people are going to slam this pick and look back at this in 2 years and be like, oh, wait, yeah, Ty Simpson's pretty good. And the Rams now have the ability to pass the baton with one pick that was house money because of the Falcons being kind of silly with their future draft pick and giving a top 15 pick to the Rams. Kind of house money for the Rams to be like, great, we went out, spent money in free agency, we traded a first-round pick for a vet that we got to pay. Let's think about our future a little bit with one pick. And we could have 15 years of franchise quarterback play. It's not guaranteed, but I really like the process. The value's not insane. I can't say this is an A, but I will defend this pick. And Rams fans, give the guy a chance. I promise you, you have plenty in-house to still go and win the Super Bowl this year. Like, their only need is wide receiver 3. And you can certainly argue that they should have taken a wide receiver. But I think the Rams can probably find another wide receiver to pair with Puka Nacua. I think they're going to be okay. So, quarterback is king. And by the way, there's a chance Matthew Stafford gets hurt. That's the other thing, man. Like, Matthew Stafford has not exactly been a model of durability over the last few years. So I'm a fan. I really am. Okay, this one was chalk. Vega Ioane. This is an A to the Ravens. Love Vega. The Ravens guard play last year made them a non-starter. It derailed their season. Vega Ioane is a beast. He's, to me, the best offensive lineman in this draft. It's just he's a guard-only prospect. But I'm taking that at 14 every day of the week and twice on Sundays. A-graded pick. Excellent value. Like, he was... And if you're wondering, like, what makes an A versus a B in this situation, I am referring to my big board. Like, if you get value and you get, for me, the 9th player in the draft at 14... that's how you end up with an A. Whereas some of these other guys that are like further down the board, but I still like the fits, that's going to be more of a B. So that's just a little quick explanation on the grading system. But I'm just speechless, man. I have never felt more confident that we are going to look back on this draft and laugh about how the hell did that happen. Now, there's the car accident situation. I spent a lot of time talking about this on the draft stream. We don't know. We don't have all the information. There's a lot of murkiness around it. There was a tragic loss of life, a reckless driving incident. I do think it speaks volumes that the family of the girl that passed away came out and said, please give us space. Like, we wish the best for Ruben Bain. It was a tragedy what happened, but we wish the best for him, and please give us space. We want to move on. I think it speaks volumes. I do. I don't think that comes out if that isn't the case. And hopefully that is just, we're all ready to move on and Ruben Bain is ready to move on. And that there is not a character concern on him. Now, there's going to be some red, little alarm bells that go off when, to me, the best player in the draft falls to the 15th pick, right? There's going to be some alarm bells go off. So, if some new stories come out and there's some stuff with Ruben Bain, I'm not going to act like I'm surprised, but I have no other reason to believe that that's going to happen. And that maybe this was some question marks with the car rec plus the short arm length thing, and NFL teams just overthought the absolute hell out of this. This is obviously a certified steal. Not only do they get, in my opinion, the best player in the draft at 15, they get the best player in the draft at 15 at a position of need that they have been desperately looking for. This is a game-wrecking edge, a potential defensive player of the year type of candidate. Feels a little bit, and I thought higher of Bane than Jared Verse, but the impact that Jared Verse had on that Rams defensive line, where they already had some decent pieces, but then getting that power, that literal influx of power into the D-line, the difference it made, God, they've been looking for this. So I texted Trevor Sikkema after this. I was like, I hate you. Like, really? And Trevor was with me that Ruben Bain was the best player in the draft. So incredible value. I mean, this is one of the steals of any draft since I've been doing this. Okay, the Jets at number 16 end up with Kenyon Sadiq, which was a little bit of a surprise, but I actually really like this as well. And especially seeing them still get Omar Cooper Jr. where they did really gets incredible, because that was like the one guy that I was like, why take Sadiq when you still need a number 2 wide receiver? And they get both. Porque no los dos for the New York Jets. So this is proof that I don't hate the Jets. I'm just calling it like I see it. I think dropping Kenyon Sadiq and Omar Cooper Jr., and I think I'm just going to lump these two together. The value of Omar Cooper Jr. at 30 for me is a certified steal. That's an S graded draft pick. Kenyon Sadiq, I think, is an A graded draft pick. If I pull up the big board, with where those guys went, I got Kenyon Sadiq as the 12th player in this draft, and right behind him, literally back to back, Omar Cooper Jr., 13. So I do actually agree that if you're going to try to get both these guys, get Sadiq now. He's slightly higher on the board, but going to probably be in higher demand. And then try to maneuver and get Omar Cooper Jr. I mean, this is insane, man. They rebuilt the offensive line over the last few years with some great draft picks. You got Garrett Wilson. To me, Omar Cooper Jr. as a compliment to Garrett Wilson, if you just removed the name and said, like, if I was AI and you asked what would make for a good compliment to Garrett Wilson, I would highlight run after catch skills. I would highlight like the ability to win in the short to intermediate game. A guy that, maybe not going to have like ridiculous separation skills or anything, but just a do-it-all demon. That's what Omar Cooper Jr. is, man. I love him as a player. And then Kenyon Sadiq, like, I'm really excited to see what Mason Taylor's weight is this year, because if Mason Taylor can get up to like 256 to 260 and just be an ass-kicking, like, Y tight end, which if you take Kenyon Sadiq, that's what this screams to me, is we're going to be a 12 personnel team with Garrett Wilson, Omar Cooper Jr., Kenyon Sadiq, and Mason Taylor. And Mason Taylor was young, not a bad blocker, but undersized. Plenty of time to get him up to full size, Y tight end ability, and that's when you get the most out of Kenyon Sadiq, is as a F tight end, off the line, slot wide receiver. You didn't just get a tight end here, you got the perfect slot wide receiver complement to Garrett Wilson and Omar Cooper Jr. So if there are Jets fans that are like, ooh, I kind of believed in Mason Taylor, I don't agree with taking Kenyon Sadiq, I encourage you to don't see this as tight end for how he's going to be used here. See this as number 2 tight end / number 3 wide receiver and full-time starter. So I love that group of playmakers. They're going to be such a fun Madden team. And whatever quarterback they end up getting next year, or maybe they do pull the trigger on like Nussmeier, who I don't hate, it could really work. So doing those together, again, it's an A on Sadiq and an S down there on Omar Cooper Jr. Blake Miller, I had to get my ring the bell out for this one. I have drafted Blake Miller to the Lions time and time again. I have banged the drum that Blake Miller is a top 20 player in this draft. So much so that you want to guess where he was on my board? Number 17. Oh, and by the way, he's like the perfect type for the Lions. He's a great run blocker. That's where he really sold me, but he's a high floor pass blocker, which is what they need, right? I agree with going Blake Miller, and I've had this dilemma for the Lions where I actually have Monroe Freeling above Blake Miller ever so slightly on my board, but the floor of Blake Miller is better. He doesn't have as many bad plays as Freeling or as many bad plays as Ihanachor. These guys might have higher upside, but Blake Miller's upside is slept on, and they are ready to go. They don't want to mess around with waiting on a tackle to develop. So Blake Miller, to me, phenomenal pick for the Lions. The value line's right up. This is an A-graded pick for me. And as a Packers fan, I'm annoyed because I was hoping that maybe we would at least get a year of like, we could pick on Monroe Freeling or something, but really good pick. Then the Vikings take Caleb Banks at 18. Kind of shocked everybody because after all the foot injuries, a report came out yesterday that was like, yeah, Caleb Banks will be ready to start the season. Expect him to go in the first round. And then all of a sudden after, oh man, Caleb Banks might fall to the third round. All of a sudden it's like, we're right back where we were with Caleb Banks as a top 20 pick. And I'm happy about it, man. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. Like, if I could send like Magic. Okay, here's a D&D reference. Wow, I'm really freaking nerding myself out right now. But if I could send 3 magic missiles out to imbue health and good fortune, and now the D&D fans are gonna be like, that's a TFG. That's not how magic missile works. Anyway, I'll see myself out. But if I could send 3 good wishes to any players in this draft, I think Caleb Banks, Jordan Tyson, please stay healthy would probably be 2 of those. And then I'll selfishly send it to whoever my Packers get at 52, I guess. But as the resident Packers fan, I'm scared of who the NFC North teams got with Blake Miller, Caleb Banks, and then we'll get to Dylan Thieneman. I think he's going to be a really good addition to a Brian Flores D-line if he's healthy. And this does come with the absolute, literal, massive caveat for a 6'6", 330-pound defensive tackle here that he's got to stay healthy. 2 foot injuries in the last year. It ain't good. On a big guy like that, it's concerning, especially for the Minnesota Vikings, who have been down this road before. And the Minnesota sports curse is a real thing. If you don't believe me, try doing what I've done and live in the state of Minnesota for 31 years. Minnesota sports teams don't get the luck of investing in injury-prone players, and then they stay healthy. So hopefully fortune changes there. But if he's on the field, I do think he's a top 20 player in this draft. I think he has one of the highest upsides of any player in this draft. I genuinely believe that his upside is Chris Jones. And Brian Flores could help unlock that by putting him in situations where he can pin his ears back. I mean, when he dominates, it's incredible. And I think Caleb Banks gets misunderstood for being a raw player because he missed so much time with the injuries. I don't think Caleb Banks is raw. I think his play translates. So he's an exciting pick. I do question, like, why wouldn't you just take Mekhi Lemon? Like, that's my main criticism on this. Like, Mekhi Lemon's 5th best player in this draft to me. I think he's an incredible wide receiver. You could have had Justin Jefferson and Mekhi Lemon and just slept like a freaking baby tonight. Instead, you took the guy that everyone's terrified if he's going to be able to play. So, I agree with the need going D tackle. Also, Dylan Thieneman was another guy that's just like an incredible football player that we all thought the Vikings would automatically take. So it was curious that they took Caleb Banks. And I think a lot of Vikings fans were like, okay, but with this pick, the risk probably is not, the risk to me does not outweigh where you could have gone elsewhere, in my opinion. So with that said, I think I will give this like a B- when ideal options were there at other spots, but still an exciting pick and could be a difference maker. It's more about the risk factor that is difficult to gauge. All right, then the Panthers. This is my secondary team, and it was fun. I think I've reached a point of my fandom with the Panthers after going to the playoff game last year where, like, this pick came in and I had I had that kind of, jitters, the fan jitters. Like, I really wanted this team to nail the pick. Mekhi Lemon was right there, and Dylan Thieneman was right there. And they take Monroe Freeling, which is a B pick for me. I think the player is just fine to take here. Freeling was someone I actually liked in this draft. He got some criticism because there's some inconsistent moments with his tape. There's some mental stuff to clean up with him. But I can understand why the Panthers would look at this and say, okay, Rasheed Walker is really just a one-year rental. And maybe they're worried about like long-term extensions for some of these tackles too, because they've been spending a lot of money and they're going to have to pay Bryce soon. So maybe they're a little worried about the cost of it all. And it's a good situation with Freeling where I don't really want Freeling starting right away, and he's not going to have to here. Rasheed Walker will start. You have Moton at right tackle. But Freeling has tremendous potential. He really does. And you could be getting a long-term superstar left tackle here with just some good coaching and clean some of that stuff up. So it's hard to fault any team for wanting to ensure the longevity of your offensive line. I just think there were other more exciting picks that could have been made. So I am going to go B on this one, but still a good pick. And then we got the Eagles. Just get Mekhi Lemon and we can all go fuck ourselves, apparently. Howie Roseman, he is the living Jesse Pinkman meme. It's so annoying. Vikings and Panthers, you just, and not just them. I think the Vikings and Panthers should have taken Mekhi Lemon. I'll say it. But did you see who traded with the Eagles to let them get this? The Dallas Cowboys traded with the Eagles and gave them Mekhi Lemon. Make it any easier on them. Why don't you, Dallas? What are we doing? What are we talking about here? Why would you let this happen? So frustrating, man. Yeah, Mekhi Lemon's freaking awesome, dude. I think he's some blend of Jackson Smith-Njigba and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't care that he's not the fastest guy, not the biggest guy. He is the living embodiment of what I think the NFL has failed to catch up on. It was like a year ago that I admitted that I had become a little outdated with this slot receiver mentality. Oh, you can't take a slot guy in the first round. Oh, an Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jackson Smith-Njigba, they can't be a game-changing wide receiver, right? That's just a slot guy. You can find those. No, dude, offensive player of the year. Look at Jackson Smith-Njigba, Puka Nacua. In the age where zone coverage is ran about 70% of the time in the NFL. This isn't 2008 where you have to deal with press man coverage from the slot. You just don't. Teams play zone. Teams understand how to use motion to free these guys up, pre-snap formations so these guys don't have to face those big, lengthy press corners. And you want a guy that can attack space and be an elite receiver against zone coverage. It's not like Mekhi Lemon can't beat man. It's not the best thing he does. But the only thing is is Jalen Hurts going to throw to the middle of the field with anticipation in a new system and get the most out of Mekhi Lemon? That's the only comment I have on this, but sure is nice for Jalen Hurts. He ran A.J. Brown out of town because he got frustrated dealing with his quarterback play, and now it's Howie's it's okay, Jalen, we got you. Here, you still have one of the best wide receiver duos in the league, even though we're forced to trade A.J. Brown because of you. It's just crazy. But there you go. That's an S, certified steal. Remarkable pick. Steelers take Maxi Honachor. I really like Maxi Honachor. He was right around this range for me. I think 23rd, 24th on the board. Yep, 23rd. So that all lines up for me. And I like that he might be able to play guard, or maybe you're kicking Braxton Jones into play guard. See if he's any better there than he is at tackle. But Honachor has some of the best upside of any player in this draft. The way he moves at 320 pounds is alien type of stuff. And I think with the right coaching, he's going to get there. It's really just his hands need work. He misses with his strikes. He doesn't protect his chest all the time. There's stuff to clean up. There's losses on tape, but I think this was a really good pick, and I like that Pittsburgh is continuing to try to get that offensive line into a spot where they have a dominant offensive line in Pittsburgh. And I think Aaron Rodgers, who I expect to come back here, is going to be happy to have a higher floor with the O-line. Then one of my favorite picks of this draft, Akeem Mesidor to the Chargers. This is an A. And by the way, this is a B pick for the Steelers. Nothing amazing, but really good, solid pick. But Akeem Mesidor to the Chargers. This is an A-graded pick. I got a great laugh because we had a great moment with Brett Coleman and EJ Snyder.
Because Khalil is not long for this world. I want him to. He's going to be alive, I think.
Give him his high school teammate, Akeem Mesidor.
Yeah. Was he? Here's the thing. The fact that I didn't immediately say, ha, 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 no, he wasn't, that does tell you how old Mesidor is.
Oh, my God. Joking about how he was Khalil Mack's high school teammate, and Brett believed it for a second. So viewers of the channel enjoyed this one. But Akeem Mesidor, to me, is the second best edge rusher in this class, 16th player in the class. And as long as you're ready to win, I'm totally fine taking a 25-year-old rookie because that is surplus value. You know, like Keldrick Falk went in the first round. The Titans are going to be waiting 2 years to see if he can rush the passer. And then he's going to be 23, you know? And meanwhile, and this is like, I'm glad to see Akeem Mesidor go first because he's a better player, even though he's older. But the Chargers, instead of having to pay Oweh $25 million, I think got a better player right now for like $8 million. Like, that's huge. And I just think it's a perfect pick, man. Like, we know that they need more pass rush. Khalil Mack is very steeply declining. It's just a great pick, man. It's an A-graded pick for me. Okay, so it's been a while since we've been like overly harsh on any of these teams. Like, I think all these teams did pretty good, other than 2 and 3. Like, we were pretty harsh on David Bailey and Jeremiah Love as picks. I would say the third least favorite thing that any team did in this draft is what the Cowboys did. The combination of handing Mekhi Lemon to the Eagles on a silver platter, and then, in my opinion, reaching on Malachi Lawrence is just not my favorite, like, move. I think Lawrence alone is like a C- for being a pretty major reach, in my opinion. And then you add the fact that you let the Eagles get Mekhi Lemon on top of it, and it's like a D+. I think Malachi Lawrence will be, in a best-case scenario, like an Odafe Oweh. That's my pro comp. He wins with a lot of swipes, his speed, cross chops. Not a great run defender. I think at times he doesn't play up to his athletic profile. And I see him as a someone that you hope develops nicely and becomes a good number 2 for you. I'm not taking that with the 23rd pick in the draft. There's too many good players on the board to do this. I know he had some big fans in this draft. I wasn't necessarily one of them. I think this is kind of your classic, the combine let us get away. Like, we got a little bit carried away with the guy after the combine, in my opinion. I don't think he consistently plays quite up to the incredible testing that he had. And I wish he had a little bit more power as a rusher as well. So I think he's going to be a solid player. I don't think this is going to be a bust. I don't think this is a Taco Charlton situation. But I don't know that he's going to be a number 1 type of guy for you. I don't. I think he's much closer as a prospect. I mean, honestly, I think Ezeraku was a better prospect who they got at like the 40th pick last year or whatever. But yeah, I'm gonna go D+ on that when packaged with the trade down, right? Like, you could have stayed at 20, taken Akeem Mesidor, and maybe the Eagles don't get Mekhi Lemon, right? Like, I would like a do-over on that if I'm Dallas, or if I'm the Giants, or I'm a Commanders fan. I'm like, really, Dallas? Really? Okay, the Browns take Casey Concepcion at 24, and this one I go back and forth on because I don't think it's a reach. Like, I have Concepcion as player 26 in this draft class, and they needed wide receiver, and that all adds up. I do take some issues with this. Number one would be that I just think Omar Cooper Jr., there's some situations where I'll bring up who they could have had instead, and other times, I like the pick enough that I can see why you went that route. In this case, I just can't really justify, especially for the Browns, going Casey Concepcion for what he is compared to Omar Cooper Jr. for what he is. I think the Browns have time and time again gone after these speed receivers, whether it was trading for Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy. They have Isaiah Bond on the team. They all the way down to like Jamari Thrash. They play in the AFC North. And until that new stadium's done, they're playing outside. And we get snow games on Thursday Night Football every year. But I just don't believe in this being a team that should be drafting and filling out their entire wide receiver room with a bunch of 5'9" speedsters. I think it's cool to have some of them, and maybe this eventually rounds out and Concepcion is that dude. But Omar Cooper Jr. in that wide receiver room would be perfect. And at some point, you're going to have a young quarterback here. And Omar Cooper Jr. is a quarterback's best friend. He makes tough catches. He run blocks for your run game. Like, we can't just come out and line up Jerry Jeudy, Casey Concepcion, and Isaiah Bond. We can't do that. Like, we're going nowhere on the ground because a defensive back is guaranteed to get through. And I'm not the biggest wide receiver run blocking guy, but it does matter when it's this exaggerated. I know Cedric Tillman's there, but the dude can never stay healthy. I would almost have preferred you go with Denzel Boston in that sense. So I disagree with this being the player for them. I also don't think if Shedeur is going to work out, I'm not necessarily making this draft pick for Shedeur, but it's context. It's something to think about, right? Like, give that guy someone that's good over the middle of the field, that's great after the catch, you can take advantage of these like beautiful, like on the money throws. And okay, Concepcion is fast. He's a little shifty, but Omar Cooper Jr. like catches slants. He catches crossing routes and breaks tackles and does like real NFL run after catch stuff. The Casey Concepcions of the world, yeah, they'll, if you give them enough space, they can make a guy miss. But like when you catch the ball over the middle of the field, you're almost guaranteed to get hit. And Casey Concepcion's going to go down when he gets hit. Omar Cooper Jr. is not. So it's hard to be like overly critical of this, but I just really don't believe in the pick and wish they would have gone in a different direction if I'm a Browns fan. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a B-. But maybe it works out. Like he gets open, man. He's a talented wide receiver. He's got drop issues. Like Jerry Jeudy is my pro comp on him. And like, okay, I know Jerry Judy's older, but you're paying him and he's around. Like, I don't know, man. Like, we want to go down that road again, I guess. Okay. We're just going to be the soft speed team that plays in the AFC North. Got it. I'm not a fan, man. I'm not. All right, Chicago Bears. I'm still annoyed by this. Dylan Thieneman's awesome, man. He's the best true free safety prospect I've evaluated since I've been doing this. And you gotta, people will freak out when I say that. You gotta remember, most safety prospects don't play true free safety. They are playing nickel or split safety. Dylan Thieneman, his range on the back end in a Dennis Allen defense that loves cover one, he's going to be awesome, man. He could be something like a Jesse Bates as a difference-making coverage free safety, and he's physical enough to play the run. So I'm annoyed that the Bears got him. As a Packers fan, at least it's like, well, they still don't have any pass rush, so that's nice at least. But he was just too good to pass up, man. And great pick by the Bears and Ryan Poles and company. So that's a certified steal on Thieneman. Then the Texans come up to take Keelan Rutledge. Interesting. Now, I don't I'm assuming they didn't give up too much to do this, but you come up to reach on a guy, in my opinion, that was a mid-round 2 guard prospect. He's really fun. I get why they like him. They love these big mauling gap guards. You know, they brought in Wyatt Teller, which would be a great pro comp for Rutledge. He's got this big, wide frame. He's a great puller for power. He could be a dominant run blocker in the NFL. But he lacks agility. He's not a great pass blocker. So I don't know. I don't see him as a first round guard. I feel like if you're a first round guard, like you got to be pretty sticky clean or have positional flexibility. And I just don't, I know Rutledge has taken some snaps as a center, so maybe he could be that. But, I see him pretty similar to like Steve Avila was for the Rams coming out, where they took him like 34th overall. And I was like, he's all right. And Steve Avila's been all right. But, it's just a little early to take this player, in my opinion. So I got to give this one, I think a D+. Like, I think there were other directions that you could have gone, like interior D-line. You had your pick of the litter, really, other than Caleb Banks. I feel like Malcolm Rodriguez on this team could have been electric. There's just other dudes you could have gone with. I think there were better guards. Emmanuel Pregnon, I think, is a better guard. He's just a little bit older. So it's not my favorite pick. I'm going to give this one a D+. Okay, the Dolphins take Chris Johnson. This one really made sense. Fits the system. I think really the only thing I thought of with this was, would they have been better just taking Jermod McCoy and going with the thinking of like, well, we're going to suck anyway. Let's take the guy that can't play this year. It'll help us suck even more. We'll get the number 1 pick next year, and then we get a top 5 player in this draft back healthy for next year. Could have been a fun thought, but I'm not really knocking the Dolphins for not doing that. That's more of just a, fun thought experiment. But Chris Johnson's really nice zone corner. He is absolutely a Jeff Hafley type of guy. It's a bona fide like B pick, man. He was in the high 30s for me, like 30, 35, I think, 36-ish. 35 on the dot there. So take that at 27 at a position of need, at an important cornerback position where you have nobody. Not a whole lot else to say. He's a very nice player. I think he can be, he reminds me a lot of Hayward. Former Packer and Charger, Casey Hayward. He reminds me a lot of Casey Hayward. So good pick. Gets a B. And then I like the Patriots getting aggressive to come get Caleb Lomu. Draft strategy was nice here, man. I think Lomu is going to be in high demand. There's an interesting tackle class because you had your top 6, which were clearly tiered off correctly. I feel like I framed that pretty well. A lot of my mock drafts, I was like, guys, these tackles are going to go. Like, top 20, they're pretty much all going to be gone. And they were all gone by 21 in that top 6 group. And then you have Caleb Lomu, who's like late 1, early 2. Tape's a little inconsistent, but all the traits are there. Just needs a little bit more time. He's just kind of a puppy, but he'll get there. And then it's like, we're not really strongly considering anybody else until the 3rd round. And the Patriots need a tackle. Not this year, but they need to draft a franchise tackle because Morgan Moses is like 35 years old. He's not been a model of durability throughout his career. He's not going to be here forever. And Drake May showed us that he needs pass pro. He's one of these guys that doesn't have a great pocket presence. And when the pressure picks up, he's more erratic. We got to make sure we got this line taken care of. So to come up a little bit and get him, I think it had to be done. It's a smidge early, but not that early. And with the board falling the way they did what they had to do. And I think he's probably going to work out because he's going to get that time to develop. There's not a lot of pressure on him right now. And he's got all the tools, man. So I like it. That's a B pick for me for the Patriots. Then we got Peter Woods to the Chiefs. Is another B pick. I go back and forth with Peter Woods. I really do. I don't think the tape is that bad. I think teams did a really good job, both with Woods and TJ Parker, of just getting the ball out against this team. And you go through these games on both Peter Woods and TJ Parker, and it's like, where were the pass rush opportunities? And even especially with Peter Woods, who caught a lot of double teams, it just, he only had 14 pressures, but you watch the tape and you kind of get it. It's like, when was he supposed to get these pressures? He just didn't get those opportunities. So I struggle with the pass rushing tape. I just don't know where he's at, but he was much better the year before. I see the athleticism. I'm not really worried the fact that he didn't test or do any of that stuff. I see the athleticism on tape. I think he's a pretty good run defender for his size. And the Chiefs need some impact on the D-line, and Peter Woods brings a nice upside if everything can come together. So I think it's a B pick, right? Like, I understand how you get to this point. He's just kind of an enigma. And I think the hardest player to come to a strong opinion on in this first round for me was Peter Woods, because I can really see it both ways. I could see him working out. I see a lot of Mason Graham in his game coming out of last year. He just wasn't productive enough to go that high. But I could see him being a bit of a flop as well. So I'm curious to see where this goes. But I like this a lot better than like when they took Felix Sanaduke-Uzama at the end of the first round, where it was like, there's no upside with that pick. There's upside with Peter Woods for sure. We talked about Mark Cooper, Keldrick Falk. The Titans come up to get Keldrick Falk, get that 5th-year option, which could actually be really useful, because the thing with Falk is like, he might become good by like year 3. And then if you're already talking about having to pay him at that point, it's like, what's the point of Keldrick Falk? So getting that 5th-year option on him actually is a very relevant player to get that, along with Jadarian Price at 32. But I will say this on Falk. I pushed back on his hype as a top 20 player. He didn't go in the top 20, right? He ended up 37th on my big board. Yeah, 37th. So this is less of a reach at 31. And I have consistently said, I've been critical of Keldrick Falk for where his weaknesses are, but I've also said that if he could go to a specific system, and I've said Houston a lot with this case, but I've talked about it with the Niners as well, but they've already kind of filled out that room with some of these guys like Keldrick Falk. But put him in a Robert Saleh / D'Amico Ryans system, where on early downs, he's your end. He's your Eric Armstead role. He's gonna set a hard edge. Everything in between the tackles is just pure chaos in this system. But what these systems can't have is leaky holes on the outside, because then you just get explosive plays because your linebackers are nowhere to be found because they get these linebackers getting upfield. But you gotta have a hard edge, and Keldrick Falk will absolutely set that. And then what these systems have done consistently, John Franklin Myers, by the way, another example of this type of player that was with Saleh with the Jets. He's back here now. Danico Autry, another one of those guys. This all goes back to Michael Bennett with the Seahawks back in the day. Keldrick Falk is an interior. He has pass rushing potential, in my opinion, as an interior piece. I don't see the get off, the speed, the ability to corner. I just don't see, even though he dropped some weight, I just don't see an edge pass rusher at the next level. I see a guy that's a defensive tackle being asked to play edge. And I think there were other systems, like if the Bears took him at 25, for example. I was worried that they were just going to stick him as a 5-tech and have him play edge, and he was never going to rush the passer. But here, they will almost certainly let him rush from 4-eye, 3-tech, and he still needs to develop there. But that's where his pass rush wins showed up. And I think it's a good fit. I do. I think this lines up. It's not like amazing. I'm going to give it a B grade along with a lot of these other really good, solid picks. But I get it. I get why the Titans did this. I do, despite having some negative feedback on Keldrick Falk. But again, it's all in context. That's when Keldrick Falk was talked as a top 20 player in the draft. This is different. And then the Seahawks take Jadarian Price. So we've talked about the idea of them doing this because this running back class is I'm speechless for this running back class because, well, here's the best way to put it. My number 6 running back in this class would have been the number 24 running back in last year's class on the same grading system. I have no idea where all the running backs went. This class sucks. There's 2 guys in this draft after Love that I think could potentially start on day one. And I think Jadarian Price definitely is a day one starter. And I think Emmett Johnson is the other guy. After that, like maybe Katron Allen can give you spot starts, but he just doesn't have juice. And the Seahawks put themselves in this spot. I think if you're going to be critical of this pick, where you should be critical is why the hell did they let Kenneth Walker out the door? Put the franchise tag on him. You just won a Super Bowl. You're telling me he won't be happy to sit here and play for $14 million and hit free agency again? They need a running back desperately. Charbonnet is not going to play this year. Emmanuel Wilson's not a starter. Where else were they going to get it? Because I don't think Jadarian Price was going to make it to 64. And yeah, Emmett Johnson maybe, but I think Jadarian Price is a good jump up from Emmett Johnson because he's actually got like speed and juice. I think he's a faster Kyron Williams. I think he's going to be a really nice player. I see a lot of Aaron Jones in Jadarian Price's game. Like, I think you would take Aaron Jones for what he's been with the 32 pick in the draft. And then you also get the 5th-year option. So if you're sitting there like, yeah, we could move down to like 38, risk that we get Jadarian Price, which is no guarantee because other people are going to have this thought process with this running back class. And then we don't get the 5th-year option, which we just experienced what it was like with Kenneth Walker not having that 5th year. Like, we'd love to have the 5th-year option on Jadarian Price when we're a team that doesn't really want to pay running backs long-term contracts. So this is a B-graded pick for me. You know, Jadarian Price is not some steal at 32, but it's not a bad pick. He was, for me, the on my big board 44, so it's a little bit early. That's how we arrive at a B, but not bad, not bad. You have a running back. Congrats. You could have also just tagged Kenneth Walker and ended up with any handful of exciting picks here, but they put themselves in this position, and that's the end of me being critical of John Schneider because he's awesome, but I disagreed with that move. All right, you guys, hell of a reactions vid. I'm going to get this chopped up nice and quick, sleep in the morning. And if you're up watching this at 3 in the morning, or maybe my international crowd's enjoying this, missed the draft last night, and this is the perfect cup of tea for you Brits, or nice morning beer for my friends in Germany. I don't know, but I love all you guys, wherever it is you're watching. Again, I will be live here tonight for day 2 of the draft. Please do like this video if you're still listening to me run my mouth here. And yeah, that's all we got. Cheers. We'll talk soon. Peace.